me. That's smart. But I don't want you to do anything for tomorrow because I'm going to come again and do it tomorrow so that you can see me. Do you see what he keeps doing? He's got this pattern of doing miracles over and over and over and over so they'll believe. And they're like, oh, and then they go, wah, and he does a miracle over and over and they go, oh, and then they go, wah, wah, and he does miracles over and over. We're like that, y'all. God does miracle for us and then we just complain about we want to see the next miracle. It's a wonder if he does any of them. Okay. So then in verse 19 it says, no one keep any of it till the morning. However, some of them paid no attention. See, right there. He's doing a miracle. They paid no attention to Moses, and they kept part of it until the morning, but it was full of maggots and began to smell. So Moses was angry with them. Well, you know what? God's the one that made it turn to maggots. Do you realize even now today that happens when you keep stuff too long? It turns into maggots. Well, okay. Each morning, everyone gathered as much as they needed, and when the sun grew hot, it melted away. What God had put as flakes on the ground for them to gather up, it just melted away. No more option for it. They had to wait till the next morning, but that's all they needed. They were learning to rely on God one day at a time. And that's what Jesus tells us, one day at a time. Old Testament, New Testament. We keep getting taught these things, and we're still being taught the same things, and we still screw up. But anyway. Okay, then in verse 23, it talks about tomorrow is to be a Sabbath rest. So bake what you want to bake and boil what you want to boil. So save whatever is left and keep that until the morning because of the Sabbath. So they saved it. And it did not stink or get maggots. Well, wait, it just did. It's like, but now God's giving you new instructions. You're going to follow it this time? Yes, okay. Well, we won't have the maggots then. Because tomorrow's the Sabbath, you're going to rest. That's what I want you to do. So I'm going to make it this time where it doesn't happen. God's trying to show them, I'm in control, not you. Just do what I say. And as they do what he says, it works. And sure enough, there wasn't any on the ground the next day. Then we go down and they did, in verse 31, God tells them to take an omer of bread, which is about, I think it says it's 6 pounds. Keep it for generations to come so they can see the bread I gave you to eat in the wilderness and I brought you out of Egypt. So take a jar and put an omer of manna in it. That's in verse 33. And then it confirms in verse 35 that this went on and on in the desert. The Israelites ate manna for how long? 40 years in the desert, just wandering around. God was leading, but it was on purpose while they were wandering around. He was teaching them in that 40 years, just like he was teaching Jesus as a human in that 40 days. Rely completely on me if you're being tested. Jesus did it. The Israelites didn't. Again, do you see the tying together of the Old and the New Testament right there? Okay, so chapter 17. The whole Israelite community set out for the desert of sin. Which means... what is it? So they camped at Rephidim, where there was no water for people to drink, so they quarreled with Moses about it and said, give us water to drink. I don't think I'd be acting like that to Moses. Why do you quarrel with me? Why do you put the Lord to the test? Don't you think after all this God knows about the human body that he made, the water ball that he made, and he put it in the universes of the universes that are way beyond it? Don't you think he knows your body needs water? But the people were thirsty for water there, and they grumbled against Moses. Why did you bring us out of Egypt to make us and our children and livestock die of thirst? This is what they just did before. They cried out to the Lord, what am I to do to these people? They are almost ready to stone me, Lord. The Lord answered, go out in front of the people, take with you some of the elders of Israel, and take in your hand the staff with which you struck the Nile, and go. I will stand there before you at the rock of Horeb. Strike the rock, and water will come out of it for the people to drink. So Moses did this in the sight of the elders, and he called the place Massah and Meribah, because the Israelites quarreled, and because they tested God, saying, is the Lord not among us? In other words, they lost faith over and over after these exotic miracles. it really is a wonder why God just didn't stop doing miracles. And some people say, well, God has stopped. I haven't seen any food falling from heaven. Ask around you. I sure hope some of you Christians are out there telling of the miracles of God that are just as real. Verse 8, the Amalekites came and attacked the Israelites at Rephidim. So that tells you where they are now. Moses said to Joshua, choose some of the men and go out and fight them, and I will stand at the top of the hill with the staff of God in my hand. So he fought. So Joshua, this is the entrance, by the way, of Joshua, fought the Amalekites as Moses had orders, and Moses, Aaron, and Hur went up on the top of the hill. And as long as Moses held up his hands, the Israelites were winning, but when he lowered his arms, they were losing. So the Amalekites were winning. So when Moses grew tired, they took a stone and had him sit down on it. And Aaron and Hur held up his hands, one on one side and one on the other. There's one guy standing here and one guy going here. We got to help him. Do you see? God could have just gone, but he didn't. He's letting them learn how to take care of each other. And for them to, even though Aaron's mouth was used to do all this great speaking, Moses was still the one that God picked. And God's saying, Aaron, I could use you. I could use Aaron, and each one of you could do this. But no, I'm going to use Moses, and as long as he holds his hands up, and as his human frailty shows, God doesn't show up and go, I'm going to make your arms work. Instead, he moves in the hearts of two men to say, I'm going to make you make his arms work. There's symbolism in everything that's going on here. And God is training us. Hold each other up. You know, when you go through these tough times and you think, I'm going to make it, I'm just going to trust in the God alone. No, you trust in God alone, but you don't do it alone. You do take the help of those who love you and let them help lift you up. Even if it's in prayer, just on this channel. But if you don't have friends, you need to make some friends. You need to reach out to your local church and get involved and make friends. And if you are bedridden, call the church and ask how you can be reached out to. Can they visit you? Y'all, there's a way. You just got to try. Pray about it. So as long as they held his hands up, they were winning, and he steadily held his arms up all the way until sunset. And Joshua overcame the Amalekite army with a sword. So it worked. And then the Lord said, write this on a scroll as something to be remembered, and make sure that Joshua hears it, because I will completely blot out the name of Amalek under heaven. Moses built an altar and called it, the Lord is my banner, because in this war against the Amalekites, the Lord said he will be against them from generation to generation. That's to today. So it's like, who are the Amalekites? Could go into that another time. We're going to keep going. But remember these names, because you'll see them show up again and again. Okay, so in chapter 18, Jethro, the priest of Midian, remember this is the father-in-law of Moses, heard of everything God had done for Moses and for his people, and that he'd brought them out of Egypt. And so after Moses had sent his wife Zipporah away, his father-in-law Jethro received her and her two sons, and the son, remember, that was named Gershom. For Moses had said, I've become a foreigner in a foreign land. That's what that name means. But the other one was named Eleazar, and for him he said, my father's God was my helper. He saved me from the sword of Pharaoh. So Jethro, Moses' father-in-law, together with Moses, his sons, and his wife, came to him in the wilderness where he was camped near the mountain of God. And they said, I, your father-in-law Jethro, I am coming to you with your wife and your sons. And he did. And so he told them all about the story. We're supposed to tell the story, y'all. And it says in verse 9, Jethro was delighted to hear about it. And then Jethro, Moses' father-in-law, brought out a burnt offering and made other sacrifices to God. And Aaron came with all the elders of Israel to eat a meal with Moses' father-in-law in the presence of God. Just a little one-liner we shouldn't have skipped over. They had a meal with God to celebrate what God had done. And they did sacrifices, and they gave offering to God. because of what he did. They didn't just say, thanks God. They did a big celebration to thank God. Y'all, we should learn from that. We should learn from that. You know, let that be what your Christmas meal and your Easter meal are. You know, not just a time for family to come together or to rest. Especially for the woman in the household or whoever's cooking, it ain't no time to rest. But it is a time to really celebrate the birth of Jesus, the death, burial, and resurrection of Jesus. These are celebration times, not for family. They're times for the family, especially the household headship, to remind them we are celebrating God in this family. That's why we come together today. I wish it would change into that. That's something to think through. The next day Moses took his seat and served as judge for the people. This is verse 13. And they stood around him from morning to evening. And when his father-in-law saw all that Moses was doing for the people, he says, what is this you're doing for the people? And Moses said, because the people come to seek God's will, I decide between the parties and inform them of God's decrees and instructions. And he says, what you're doing is good. But this work is too heavy for you. This is too much. You can't handle it alone. Now listen to me, and I will give you some advice that that may God be with you. You must be the people's representative before God and bring their disputes to him. Teach them his decrees and his instructions, and show them the way they are to live and how they're supposed to behave. But select capable men from all the people, men who fear God, trustworthy, and hate dishonest gain, and appoint them as officials over thousands, hundreds, fifties, and 10, and have them serve as the judgment for the people of all times, but have them bring every difficult case before you. That you may make, this will make your load lighter. So this is a father-in-law, a wiser, older man, telling Moses what he should be doing. He's doing too much. He's burning out.